Or are you able to live in a healthy state of mental health with yourself? Like, is it making you paranoid? Like, are you starting to get into delusional thinking territory? Is it scaring you from interacting with people on the outside? Like, these are all really important questions. So I look at it through the lens of mental health, because we all have like weird beliefs that some people would say.
Oh, yeah.
It's harder to debate beliefs. Like, those are very personal. They may not always be rational beliefs, but it doesn't matter. Like, that's oftentimes what it's not there for.
Welcome to Creepalachia. We are diving into the deep, I'm going to say dark world of cults. And who better to do that with than Ashlen Hilliard, who is on her tour with the Psychology of Cults events. How many did you schedule?
There's like 16 events total over the span of the next 4 weeks. Yesterday was our 4th event on the road, and tomorrow will be the 5th, which is crazy.
Perfect. And I've been doing a lot of studying and listening to podcasts with you, enough to know I'm extremely unqualified to have this conversation. So I'm so glad that you're here to kind of break cults down. And you actually, people leave cults is you do an intervention service.
Mm-hmm. Intervention services for families who have loved ones in groups who are concerned, and recovery services for survivors who need support.
Thank goodness. I'm glad stuff like that is out there because we definitely need it. So give me some backstory on you. Where did you grow up?
Yeah.
A little bit of that.
Yeah. So I was brought up in a military family. And so we moved every couple years. And I primarily call Utah was home for me because that was our last sort of station, was out in Utah. So I grew up in Utah from like 4th grade onward. And it was really interesting sort of moving to a place where I was in sort of the minority. You know, I wasn't Mormon or LDS. And so at a very young age, I was learning how to navigate sort of this new culture, and also being a minority surrounded by like the predominant religion around me. And, you know, I was thinking about like how, you know, it also like challenged me to like learn a lot more about religion and about how to communicate with people who shared different worldviews than me. And it was a really interesting like challenge from a very young age. I was raised religious. I was raised more in a fundamentalist Christian church. And so we were pretty strict, you know, conservative growing up. That was sort of my own background. I attended a college for those in the group in Florida, and then I moved back to Utah. And I just sort of decided, you know, over the course of, I guess, a long period of time, really, but I just kind of felt like this church maybe wasn't for me anymore. Mm-hmm. But I learned that it was really hard for me to transition out of it, and I didn't expect it to be so hard. It wasn't as simple as like attending a new church or exploring a new faith tradition. My salvation was seen as tied up in sort of attending this particular church. And so it was tough. Like, people were really worried about my soul, even though I was still exploring Christianity at the time, just from leaving this particular church. And I lost a lot of community when I made that transition. And my personal story is sort of what motivated me to get involved helping other people who were going through some sort of similar like faith or like loss of community transition in their lives. And so I dove right into the deep end out in Utah, working with those exiting a diverse set of polygamous Mormon fundamentalist groups all across the Western U.S. So that was a lot of big words.
No, this is great.
Basically like the FLDS. We've all heard of Warren Jeff's group, sure. The FLDS, and the Kingston Clan and the Apostolic United Brethren communities. So I was a case manager working with women whose experiences were way, way, way different and on a very different sort of spectrum of abuse. I mean, they were dealing with underage child, marriages and incestuous relationships and different levels of spiritual abuse than from what I had experienced. But, you know, it was really rewarding work to work with them. And that sort of launched my career working with cult survivors. And next year will be my 8th year working with survivors in the field. So it kind of just started from there.
That's great. So, how many people did you save from that specific community in Utah? Like, and what year did that start? How long ago? So that was 8 years ago.
So I started working with polygamous communities back in like 2018. And I was there for about a year in that role, and then went on to work for a large international nonprofit who helps survivors. It's called the International Cultic Studies Association, ICSA for short. They throw on a lot of like conferences. They're more of like the academic arm of like cult recovery professionals, researchers, academics who like want to study this phenomenon in the field. And then from there, I got my master's degree in the psychology of coercive control and started People Leave Cults and found my mentors, and I've been doing interventions and work like that since.
Thank goodness. And I noticed a lot of your events are in Appalachia, so that's good that you have that base of, because, you know, we're very conservative, and and you got to kind of lay these things out in a way that is honest, but also helps people understand how devastating this could be. So and you're going to be at the Clay Center actually, you know, before this airs, but I'm going to post about it this evening. When did you come up with this idea to have this event? So
I was approached by Right Angle Entertainment. They put on touring shows, usually fun touring shows like, you know, George Michael's Life and Tribute show and like,
oh wow, nice.
Wheel of Fortune live. Like they do these like cool live shows. And they've been testing out this like theory to try like more expert shows. And last year they did the psychology of serial killers with Dr. Rachel Tolles, and it went really well. There's a huge true crime base, and they approached me earlier this year and they're like, hey, we're interested in doing like a psychology of cults show. And they interviewed some people and they decided on me, which I'm really grateful for, to do the show. And part of the whole purpose of the show was I really want to change how people think about cults. I want people to know that anyone can get into them. I think there's a lot of stigma surrounding cults still. And also like, I want it to be an opportunity where it's largely been almost like an educational intervention with the audience. Anyone can be there, whether they're religious, non-religious, whatever side of the political aisle they may be on, and hopefully taking parts of the show that make sense to them and applying it to their own circumstances is my goal. And so like giving the audience that sort of education is what I love to do. I love doing the education. And that's like primarily my work with People Leave Cults as well, as I'm here doing the education and the strategy. I used to do more frontlines work, you know, doing case management, coordinating with law enforcement, that sort of thing. But now I'm in this really wonderful like education circle, and I love to like be a very nuanced voice in this field when it comes to these issues. I don't want to make people defensive right away, because then you don't get anywhere in conversations. You like lose credibility with that person. So finding a way to like, you know, appeal to someone in a way that they can apply to their own situation, I think is really important.
Oh, that's great to know. Oh, so I guess starting with square one, what is the definition of cult?
Yeah. So even amongst scholars, there's not one agreed upon definition. And that's why the topic is very complicated. Most people believe that a cult is a group that they think is weird, wrong, or bad because they don't believe the same thing that they do. The way that I define cult is a group that is united by a particular cause, person, or idea that involves thought reform, coercive control, or restriction of autonomy. Now that obviously can be unpacked even more, but I think one of the traits that people assume about cults is that you have to have a charismatic leader. And most cults do. Some of the big ones that are more recognizable do, but that's not actually the case. Like, control can be exerted in a lot of ways. It can be ideologically controlled. Like, your belief system could be the thing that's like uniting people and controlling people. They may be surrounding a cause. Maybe it's the cause that they're devoted to. It may not be just like that one easily identifiable like coercive controlling person. So yeah, it's actually a pretty broad definition, but there's not a list that exists of what cults are and what cults aren't. Like there's no list that exists that have like these groups are in a cult, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do with that? And really, my approach has been to educate people on the dynamics that can be abusive in these group systems.
Sure. Is it possible to have a positive cult?
I think, there's that book called Cultish by Amanda Montell, and she's a linguist. So she approaches a definition through sort of a linguistic perspective. And I think when we talk about cults, we assume that we're talking about destructive groups. And that's primarily how I use the term, is when we're talking about abusive, destructive cults. I guess based off of a linguistic definition, you can have a group that's like united with the common goal in mind, who maybe like have very similar, like they want to dress the same or they want to support the same thing. But where I get concerned is like if that is being used as mechanisms for control. And I think if that's not the case, then to me, it doesn't fit the traditional definition of cult. So my answers are going to be really nuanced today, as you can tell.
I love it.
Yeah, because it's like these issues aren't super clear.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to be transparent about that.
So someone could potentially be in a cult if they really like Taylor Swift. Is that what we're saying today? Or not? But to me, that can be positive, though. So I don't really see it as a cult. I see it as a following.
I think
that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there are some distinctions. Like you can have someone who's like a cult of personality, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a destructive thing. You may have a following, but if you have a following, you have to make sure that you're not wielding your power and authority in a way that is harmful to your audience.
Yeah, or what about controlling them to, for instance, there's a situation that came up on social media of these charismatic folks, and I won't say who they are because there's a lot of negativity that comes up from their names and who they have exploited, in my opinion. But they have raised money under false pretenses, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's being investigated by legally right now. So I consider those to be potential cults because they have people on social media that will defend them and they'll lash out against other people and different things like that. So I'm just trying to narrow down. I feel like it's a wide.
Yeah, exploitation is like common in both cults and also abusive group settings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like when people are being financially exploited, when there's sort of people who are like not being transparent. And that's why I sort of like to look at it through the lens of like, is this a safe community or a psychologically abusive community? Because you can have safe communities. You can have people who you get together and like play D&D with and like enjoy, being in community with something you enjoy and like. But you can also have communities who attract people based off of interest and then look for ways to either exploit them or people are harmed and there's no accountability that leadership has. And that's when it becomes culty in my mind.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Is there any particular cults that you studied early on before you dove into this journey?
I really was exposed to like the history of like the fundamentalist Mormon communities through my work with like the FLDS really early on. I'd say that was like my biggest exposure to a group that had some pretty serious like high control dynamics, which has been, they've been described as a cult in the media based off of the abuse that Warren Jeffs has wielded over that community for years. So the history of Mormonism and like understanding like how these polygamous sects like have continued and how they broke off from the mainstream, because mainstream Mormons don't practice polygamy, was really interesting to me to see how this has continued. All Mormon families, well, I would say most Mormon families, when they were pioneers and they came to Utah, were practicing polygamy. It wasn't until there was a change in what the prophet at that time said. And also Utah was trying to become a state. And for Utah to be recognized as a state, people in the government were kind of like, yeah, we don't like this whole polygamy thing. Like it was like really concerning.
Sure.
So part of like becoming a state, it sort of came at the same time. And I guess it's like whatever your beliefs are on that are like valid. But the prophet at the time made this proclamation that we're going to like cease practicing polygamy. And that also helped them gain statehood. But a lot of families, that's like, it was such like instilled culturally for them, the practice of polygamy. It wasn't a practice that just ended overnight by any means. And the people who I worked with in these like very isolated communities felt like they were adhering to like the original church. Like they had sort of toughed it out. You know, they were living polygamy like they always had. And so it was super interesting to learn about their history.
Yeah. So I imagine there's a lot of grooming. We hear that a lot of how do they recruit new members? Or is it all basically, is it essentially a family tradition that someone literally has to, change all of their foundational values to leave? I'm just curious how they'd figure out that something weird is going on.
Most people are born in. I'd say like 99% of people are born into a Mormon polygamous family. Now with mainstream Mormonism, that's not the case. People are missionaries, like there's a huge emphasis on evangelism and things like that. But with polygamists, you are born into that tradition, and then you are raised in that cultural and religious tradition. And when your parents were also born in, and maybe your grandparents were born in, you're like multi-generational at that stage. So this stuff and the teachings are so normalized, they're like in your DNA. And what can happen in these communities is young girls come of age and are married. I know the Kingstons have this practice of incestuous relationships because they want to keep their bloodlines pure. And they have trafficked young girls across state lines to get married to first cousins. There have been arranged marriages between young girls and their uncles, which is horrific when you think about the genetic ramifications of that later on. So like most people are just born in. And so that grooming, that exploitation starts very, very young. And when you're seeing other girls your age who are also doing that, it's what's expected of you. Not only what's expected of you, but your salvation can be tied up in it. For the FLDS, for you to not go along with the program, your soul is at stake. Yeah. It's a really big deal to not commit to a polygamous lifestyle, to not have children. If you don't, like, there's a huge risk that you wouldn't get into heaven.
Man, that's powerful to think about because, it's easy for most people just to look at something and say, oh, well, that's crazy. I would never do that. Yeah, because you don't have that mind frame and you don't have that training. It's
what your parents are doing. When you're raised with like having multiple moms, like that stuff is just normal. Like you don't know anything else.
And you have helped individuals like that leave. What happens to them that they decide, something's not right here? Is there outside influence or?
There can be. Everyone's sort of, I like to compare it to this universal concept of like a shelf. We all have like doubts and concerns and fears that we like put on a shelf, something that we just kind of deal with later. We've all been in a relationship where we're like, damn, I wish I would have listened to myself sooner because this didn't work out. Right. And people who are in high control groups, the same thing can happen to them. Over time, that shelf of their concerns or fears may start to get cracks and it may get really heavy, or it just may break all at once. But there's usually not like one aha moment, but there can be for some people. I know sometimes like when really bad moments of abuse happen, sometimes that could be someone's like breaking point and they want out. But for others, it can take like a long period of time to sort of recognize what's going on. And sometimes being in a high control group just becomes too difficult to stay, whether due to the demands on someone's time or finances or their health. It can really affect your health being in these situations, limited choice for people. And there are some groups like the FLDS that are isolated. They live like in Short Creek, Arizona, border of Arizona and Utah. And then you have communities like the Kingstons who live amongst everyday, people in the Salt Lake City Valley. They like live in the city. So your neighbors could be Kingston. You may not even know. The Apostolic United Brethren can be that way as well. And so when it's less isolated, it's not like you're on a compound. You do kind of see how other people around you get to live. And you may wish for that in some ways. And so for me, it wasn't like I was going in and saying, hey, you need to leave this thing. That wasn't my role. these people had already made a mental decision to not be there anymore for lots of reasons. And they would contact our nonprofit that I worked for help and resources. And sometimes that involved us meeting with them and getting them to a safe house or getting police escort. We've pulled tracking devices off of cars that men have placed on cars to like let them know if their, wives try to leave. So it can be pretty serious when someone leaves. And then in other instances, it may not be that serious. It may just be as easy as being like, this isn't for me anymore. Pack up the kids, pack up what little you have. And that's a really big decision, but maybe your physical safety is less at stake than others, So like every situation is very diverse and different.
That makes sense. How typically would they reach out? So they have regular access to technology and phones and all kinds of different things like that. It's not like an Amish community.
It's more accepted nowadays than not. So like when Warren Jeffs when he wasn't in prison and he was like out in the community, there was no games, there was no toys, there was no technology, there was like no books, right? Like it was very, very informationally controlled in that community. And since he's been in prison, life has gone on. I imagine technology use is more common down there. It's been several years since I've been down there, to be honest, but I imagine it's a little bit more common or at least easier to get your hands on. And then for people and it also depends on, some of the Kingstons, some of the women we helped were from pretty terrible domestic violence situations. And so the husband may have restricted their technology use. Sometimes they contacted us on like a burner phone. And so it just depends on the situation.
Yeah. And Warren, he has a Netflix documentary. How many wives did he have exactly?
I don't remember offhand.
Several dozen.
It was a lot.
Seems like, yeah.
It was a lot. And there was someone in the Kingstons who had upwards of, I think it was like 20 something wives and had almost 300 children.
Goodness.
So it, can become very large very quickly.
Yeah. And this is a little late, but what's the definition of grooming? Like you hear that on newscasts all the time, but someone may be out there listening that doesn't necessarily know what that is. But what's the process of grooming?
I think there's a lot of myths surrounding grooming. I do think it's become one of those buzzwords that gets like slapped on people or groups. And when it's used in that sort of buzzword way, the problem is it now doesn't actually inform people as to what grooming actually is. Mm-hmm. Like it can become really dangerous when it's watered down to the degree that it's watered down. And grooming is when someone who's usually close to you, it usually happens from a family member, distant relative, maybe a friend or a friend's parents, when someone starts a relationship with you in order to signal safety. And it doesn't have to be romantic at the time, but just some sort of like act of flattery to signal safety. And then over a period of time, your relationship with the groomer becomes extremely coercive. They apply coercive control over a period of time so that you start to have less and less autonomy. And then it becomes they are the one controlling you. And I think about what happened in Nixium, and I know that that's a whole sort of can of worms in terms of where we could go and talk about that. But the women who were involved in DOS at the upper levels, they were designated as masters and slaves and extorted. They were asked to send compromising photographs of themselves to ensure their silence. And, the same thing can happen in a grooming relationship. And the groomer may want to groom a young person it could be sexual reasons. It can also be in another type of grooming relationship. It can be being catfished, right? It could be for financial reasons. But grooming is a exerted effort to coercively control a victim over a period of time. And that's what's so important. And it's usually done by someone who's within your circle, someone who you're more likely to trust so that they can hold that power over you because they want to ensure your silence at the end of the day through the abuse.
Sure. And the NXIVM cults, weren't they branded? Didn't they have to brand themselves and all kinds of...
Yeah. So NXIVM was founded in 1998 by Keith Raniere, and it was sort of this human potential movement. They offered personal development courses, and whistleblowers came forward, survivors of this group. And what came to find out was those in DOS, like I mentioned, the women, they were branded. They were sex trafficked. And the brand was originally thought to be a combination of earth element symbols, but it was later found out to be Keith Raniere's initials.
Goodness gracious.
It was disgusting. Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like, I know you mentioned it doesn't have to have a charismatic leader, but it seems like 9 times out of 10, there's a charismatic leader involved.
Yeah, totally.
Is there a certain age or vulnerability that these people look for, or can it vary?
So I have, and if you're going to the show, I'm sorry in advance because these are things that I talk about in the show, but I have a whole bullet point of list that I take people through. You can be born into a group. So there's multiple categories here. You can be born into a group. You may get forced into a group. And when I say forced in, someone could be brainwashed in. Those situations are extremely rare, super rare in comparison to the last category. And that's most people join voluntarily for a variety of reasons. And I sort of split them up into 2 categories. But what I want people to realize is both categories of people are looking for something. And when I say voluntarily, that doesn't mean that there's still manipulation and things involved to try to get someone in, but they join voluntarily based off of what's offered. And 2 groups of people that I see as most vulnerable are people during transition points. So this could be college students at the prime of their self-actualization phase. There's a reason why cults recruit so heavily on college campuses and have been for years. Maybe there's a new change in the family dynamics. Maybe you've been divorced or you moved, or there's a loss of a loved one or a sudden employment change, or maybe you receive a new healthcare diagnosis and you're scared and looking for answers. Or maybe you are just undergoing a shift in identity. It's super common for people to reach points in their life where they're like, maybe I want to do something different, or maybe I want to believe something different. And then the second category of people I talk about is people in marginalized communities who are often in search of something. That can be Black, Indigenous people of color. 70% of people who died at Jonestown were African American.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Jim Jones preyed off of people who came to California to see his preaching because he embraced African American communities in a way that they were not experiencing with Jim Crow laws of the South. He offered that safety for them at first. I also think about elderly people, especially those with generational wealth, can become targeted, or immigrants, or people who are neurodiverse, or, people escaping abusive family systems. Sometimes they may find safety in a cult at first, or people who are maybe queer and want a more accepting community, or also those with chronic illnesses or disabilities. And what I like to tell people is how many people, once you've seen that list and you see every bullet point that I just covered, have never had any of these things apply to you.
Sure.
And the fact is that most people join cults for reasons that we can all relate to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For me, one thing that changed my life was exercising.
Yeah.
I mean, something that simple. But I can see how there would be a time period where I was searching for something else and someone could have stepped in and been like, oh, hey, I feel the same way. You know,
we can offer you that. Here's what you can do.
Yeah.
So on the onset, the introduction to sort of new ideas or new community is really appealing. You have no reason to have your guard up.
Sure. And I hate to look at situations and just automatically cast judgment on people. I like to examine and figure out what do they actually like about this? What's attractive to this, or potentially attractive? And I'm curious, is it typically, how many are religion based versus it's just a community, or is there kind of a consistency there?
There's a lot of diversity in how cults can look, or where cult dynamics can exist. It can exist in religious communities. It can exist in businesses. It can exist in human potential movements. It can exist in new age groups. It can exist in online groups, politics. It can exist in abusive family systems as well as one-on-one relationships.
What are some questions you can ask yourself of like, well, am I in a cult? Like, are there certain things you could do to self-examine your situation?
Totally. Couple of things. I think about how to look for, it's possible to have healthy group communities. Like we all need healthy community. We need healthy relationships. I think when you think about what a healthy community can look like, it's important to ask if there is a leader of that community or there is some sort of like power dynamic with somebody. Are they open to change? Do they take accountability for any harm that's been done? If they hear that someone is being abused in their group, do they step in and say, how can we change that? I think these are all things that are really important for the leadership, because if there is a power dynamic going on, and this can look like for example, in a religious setting, this can look like maybe a pastor and their relationship with the congregants. It can be as simple as that sort of dynamic. Anyone who's in an authoritative position, if they don't take ownership of abuse that's happening in their community, then that's a problem. That's a problem. That doesn't build psychological safety for people. And that can lead someone towards a really bad path. There are ways that we can sort of talk our ways out of this. Like when I think about, religious groups, I think about how, there's been a lot of accounts over the years, lots of different denominations where this has been the problem, but like where maybe the pastor has been accused of sexual sin. But it can be easy for someone to be like, well, that's just gossip. And I'm not going to give in to that slander because this person's been helping me grow in my relationship with God. Like you can see how someone can sort of talk their way out of it based off of what they know about, what maybe the scripture says about gossip and things like that. And so that's a way to sort of fact check where your head's at. I also think like we all maybe have beliefs that people may think are strange. Like most people have maybe a conspiracy theory that they hold, and that's fine. Like that's part of what makes us human, and it's good to like critically think this stuff. But where it can become a problem is if that, I'll just use conspiracy theory as an example. If that conspiracy theory affects you being able to have healthy mental health, if it affects how you see the world around you, your ability to engage in it, if it affects how you treat people who don't subscribe to maybe the same theory, or are you able to live in a healthy state of mental health with yourself? Like, is it making you paranoid? Like, are you starting to get into delusional thinking territory? Is it scaring you from interacting with people on the outside? Like, these are all really important questions. So I look at it through the lens of mental health, because we all have like weird beliefs that some people would say.
Oh, yeah. It's
harder to debate beliefs. Like those are very personal. They may not always be rational beliefs, but it doesn't matter. Like that's oftentimes what it's not there for. And so I look at how is this affecting your mental health?
I love that because, it's fun to think, oh, yeah, Bigfoot's real versus like people diving into like 9/11 conspiracies and QAnon and all of these things that people, it can affect their daily judgment, make them isolated, and then crazy stuff starts to happen. There's a huge difference there.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So are there like gaslighting, for instance? Are there typical tactics, psychological tools? And I know you touched on this with you're talking about leaders before, but I'm just curious. Like, are there typical things that they go towards, maybe on their online tactics, like trying to knowing something's real? For instance, gaslighting. I didn't know what that meant until like 2 months ago. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically where people say something's not real, knowing good and well it's real to cause a reaction.
Yeah, they're trying to deny what your actual experienced reality is.
Okay.
It's kind of like they're trying to make you feel crazy. They're trying to make you doubt your experience with that abuser. And it can literally make you feel like you're going insane because you're experiencing something, you're witnessing something, you bring it to their attention, And they'll say something like, that never happened. Or like, I don't know what you're talking about. Or like just blatantly lie, right? And it is not good to be in that sort of dynamic with anybody.
Sure, yeah. And then cognitive dissonance, too, is something I love thinking and talking about, because when someone is presented something, for instance, I'm agnostic, and what I love about this show is I can bring that up, and there's people that listen across the religious spectrum that appreciates those conversations. But at the same time, some people, when they're presented something that directly contradicts their beliefs, they just can't hear of it. Like you was mentioning before, like they'll rationalize their way out of it. Is cognitive dissonance a big thing with cults? Like I know
it's huge
with Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
It was a really big thing when they didn't actually, get sent to the spaceships on certain days and they still stayed in there. So how do you fight that?
It's huge. It's like, you remember that shelf analogy that I talked about?
Yeah.
That's like a different way of describing cognitive dissonance.
Okay.
It's almost like what has been originally promised to you is not what you're actually seeing happen. And people get really disillusioned really quickly, whether from what the group is promising or what the leader is promising. When they're not seeing like that add up over time, that can be the reason why people split. It's like that's like basically cognitive dissonance. It's hard to sit with the discomfort of, seeing what you're actually seeing versus what you're being told to see and believe and think. And for a lot of people, that's their breaking point. But it can take a long time for that cognitive dissonance to like weigh so heavily that it prompts someone to leave.
Sure. Yeah. How many people over the years would you guess? I mean, doesn't have to be exact number. Have you helped leave these places?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by leave. I think like cult survivors decide to leave on their own, but I've interacted and helped with cult survivors over 8 years, probably hundreds of survivors from all kinds of different groups and situations. Some have needed more, I guess, help than others when it comes to leaving. Like when I was helping someone from the FLDS, that was a different tier of help. That was sometimes getting them to a shelter, safety. Sometimes that was helping them find housing, or getting them started with their GED if they wanted to get a high school education. And with other people, maybe they're much more integrated into like, maybe they have to have a job, maybe they left a year ago, but they're still struggling and they're needing help and resources. And I'm happy to help them navigate what's available in terms of resources in the field of cult recovery, trying to make this as accessible as possible for survivors.
Sounds like you're a social worker for cultists. I don't know if that makes sense.
Basically,
like, yeah. You're kind of.
I work in social services. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So are there any situations where, a leader may have reached out and been like, hey, you need to stop what you're doing? This is really.
I've never had that happen.
Thank goodness.
I've never had that happen. And I think, and it may happen someday, but I think strategically it's because, I don't have on my website a list of groups that I think are bad and cults. Like I'm more about people coming to me who need help, and I'm happy to talk to people and see what they need. And if I can't help them, maybe I have a colleague who can. And so I think because I take a position of empowering survivors and hope instead of, I guess, like cults are bad type advocacy, where I'm like going after specific groups, I think it allows me to keep functioning because cults like to sue, let's be honest. And that's always been a careful consideration for me. Like, how do I like do this work, but also like protect myself, but also talk about the harms of cults? It's a lot of like things to have to consider. It's a hard tightrope to walk sometimes. I think like you're never going to make 100% of the people who, listen to you fully happy or understand. Like there will be people who disagree but I think because I haven't done like an investigative journalist report exposing a cult, if that makes sense. So,
sure. No, yeah.
I think it's just because of how I position myself.
Okay. Who do you want to call out today? We can call them out now if you want. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
We go straight for Scientology. No,
let's go.
Take that out.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to get sued.
Well, there's no Scientologists I would highly doubt there's a Scientologist in West Virginia, but
Oh, I'm sure
you
they're
never
here.
know.
I'm sure they're here. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, maybe they're out there, but I mean, but even still, I want to talk. So this, I don't know, this may be a hot take. I think sometimes cults, there's certain ones that I think could be overall positive for someone's life, and what messes it up is human error. Like, for instance, the Rajneeshis.
Yeah.
I'm
in Portland, Oregon, so they're not, that where that got started isn't all that far from my neck of the woods.
Yeah. So in Wild Wild Country, excellent documentary on Netflix. But from what I gathered, like I meditate and stuff, and I think a lot of it overall can be so positive for someone's life. It's just, first, it's misunderstood by outsiders, but also human error came in and corruption deteriorated the movement. But I mean, there's a lot of Rajneeshis practicing today all across the world. But I think some of them are actually, highly beneficial for people who are involved, as long as it doesn't, take that negative turn, if that makes sense.
Here's what I'll say about meditation is found in a lot of groups that are really culty, right? But people can have really positive experiences with meditation. Where it can be a problem is when someone is in a state of what I would like to call an altered state. When someone's in an altered state with meditation, it's pretty easy for a cult leader or an abusive leader or person to come in and abuse someone or feed them information while they're in an altered state of consciousness. And so meditation itself can be really helpful for some people, but it also isn't helpful for all people. Like, our brains are so complex that, and the way that cults can use meditation is you have to meditate for 5 to 8 hours a day, and that's a lot of time spent disassociating in altered states. It's very different than someone who uses meditation for 20 minutes.
Headspace for 10 minutes
in
a day.
Who maybe uses something like that for 20 minutes or 10 minutes. And so this stuff exists on a spectrum. And I worry about what's being done to people or what's being said when they're in altered states, especially when they're so disassociated most of the day in these high control settings. You know what I mean?
It sounds like hypnotization or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, meditation is like self-hypnosis.
Yeah, it is. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah, it totally is. And that can be okay. That can be positive or benign, can help people with anxiety. But there are studies that are also helpful to know that, like, for some people who they've experienced what's called meditative related distress. There's an organization called Cheetah House, and they help meditators who've experienced distress from all types of worldviews and walks of life, because meditation can impact the brain, but usually they're dealing with much more severe cases where people are, meditating for extended periods of time. And I remember my mentor told me, because he was in transcendental meditation for many years, when he quit meditating and left transcendental meditation after suing them in federal court for fraud and negligence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
He stopped meditating sort of just cold turkey, I guess. And he lost his ability to read for a month. And it's actually not all that uncommon for your brain to sort of go through this period of reset after, but he was extensively meditating, with this group. And so, yeah, that's what I'll say on meditation. It's can be used in so many different contexts, worldviews, time allotted. Is there a leader? Is there not? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I just use the Headspace app for 10 to 15 minutes a day. And when I did it regularly, it did, because I have 13 thoughts a second just going on.
I do as well. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really helped you. It helped you. The way I visualized it and the way that they explained it in one of the earlier courses is that, imagine you're looking at a highway, and the cars never stop. You just start paying attention to the blue sky. and allow the cars to do their thing. And I was like, oh, that sounds so lovely. You know?
Well, and that's the same pitch that gets pitched to people in groups that meditate.
Really?
Like it's no different than,
sure.
And it sounds really positive, right? Like it sounds really exciting. We want to have our racing thoughts like chilled out. Like who wouldn't want that? So what you're describing, that experience of being like, oh, this makes sense for me. That's exactly what people hear and think in groups when they first get introduced to them. I'm not saying that Headspace is a cult, by the way. I'm not at all.
I mean,
that's that same, I don't know enough about it, but it's that same like sort of feeling of like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. That would be great. That would help me so much. Like,
sure.
And that's also part of what makes us human. It's not a bad thing. It's just how we can get taken advantage of at the same time.
Sure.
It's good to recognize.
No, yeah, that makes sense. Well, I noticed the weird part about it for me is literally it felt almost like I had mental superpowers when I started doing it long enough. Like when it would have you trace this little ball of light through your body, like literally you could sit there and make your nerves react across your entire body. And I'm like, I'm in the Fantastic Four. This is borderline Marvel comic stuff, you know? And then I stopped doing it, which I want to go back and do it. But obviously, 5 to 8 hours, that's exhausting. That's a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I don't see how, like screen time I know is ruining my brain.
Yeah.
I can't even put my daggone phone down.
I know. I know.
So I could only imagine just sitting there and, doing a sound for 5 or 8 hours.
Yeah. I mean, what you're talking about, that sort of visualization, we can do that when we're in an altered state of consciousness. It's basically putting you in a trance state. And trance states aren't inherently bad, but it's what's happening in the brain. And there was this program, I'll give you an example of transcendental meditation at the upper levels called TM Siddhi. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have not.
So TM Siddhi was an upper levels course, and people believe that if they practice TM Siddhi, that crime rates would decrease and we would have world peace. It was called the extended Maharishi effect. And TM Siddhi, what that program was people sitting in lotus position and hopping across the floor in lotus position. They were called yogic flyers. They believed that they could fly. They could access parts of their consciousness that they hadn't before through closing their eyes, doing the meditation, just like you're describing, that silent mantra form of meditation, and visualize themselves flying through the air. And what's so fascinating is they hopped, they're just like bouncing up and down on like mats. But that was not the experience that they were having internally. Internally, they closed their eyes, they did the meditation, and then they would just like essentially come to, and they're across the room. They literally felt like their internal experience was that they were actually flying, but they knew that they weren't actually. Someone described it as like, it was like I was a bird in the air, but of course we came right back down. For a moment, for a minute, they had that sensation of flying. And they could feel this like energy shoot up from their spine because their chakras were like aligned as it was taught. And they like envisioned this reality for themselves, and they were like able to like, mentally do it and do this amazing thing, have a superpower, I guess you could say.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, they had a superpower where they literally felt like they were flying, but you're watching a video of them and they're just hopping on mats in lotus position. Very uncomfortably so. And so this is where my mentors were like, it got really bad. Like they knew of people who were sent to war zones to yogic fly in hotel conference rooms because they truly believed it would achieve world peace.
Goodness gracious.
And that's, TM has been sued in federal court for fraud and negligence because they promise you can access parts of your consciousness. You can literally fly. You can walk through walls. That's not actually what's being delivered.
Yeah, you just feel that way.
But you feel it's your internal experience that drives it. And internal experience, and I talk about this during the show, that is something that you can experience in cults that you can't put words to. Cults set this environment where you feel something amazing. I'm going to use a Headspace app as an example. They set the environment so that they talk you through, you close your eyes, you do visualizations, guided imagery, and it elicits an amazing feeling like you have superpowers is what you're describing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like that experience feels so special to you. You don't feel like you can even like describe to someone else what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we know it's not logical, but it doesn't matter. It feels really cool. Like it feels really special. And people have internal experiences in cults because cults set the conditions for that to happen. Like with the yogic flying, they gave them a whole routine of like, you go into silent mantra meditation, you repeat this phrase, you feel your chakras align, and then you're going to feel this, and then you're going to feel this. And that's what happens. And that feeling is so amazing. People know it can't be replicated outside the group. Or maybe it would be hard for like, let's say someone like you to like have that happen outside of the Headspace app walking you through it. Like to just do it right now would probably be really difficult.
It would. Yes.
So like you kind of rely on that group or that thing to
that
like
voice.
Yes, to give you this experience that is amazing. And that experience is what can keep people in cults a lot longer than they want to be there. Cause like they're feeling things that are undescribable and no one else is going to get it. Like that's just, no one else is going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I love talking about internal experiences. I hope you don't mind. I'm like,
oh no, I love this.
Talking with you about your Headspace app.
Sure. Yeah. I want to keep going. Do you think, how has social media affected our brains and the potential to be captured by this? I just feel like there's a reason that we love, like there's videos where, you know, people will go and sit and watch someone cut a piece of soap for 2 hours because we're just so, you know what I mean?
I love the carpet cleaning ones.
Exactly.
Those ones are amazing. I love watching people clean rugs or power washing.
Yes.
Power washing's pretty phenomenal as well.
I feel like we're shifting toward this simplicity of just being so tired of hearing all this noise that we want something, we need something in our life that is calming in a way. I don't know. It just feels like overall, obviously, you know, I'm thankful for social media because I wouldn't be able to, you know, try and build a platform and tell spooky stories and talk about cults. But at the same time, we love excess and it's too much. I think it's just really damaging our perceptions on reality sometimes.
Well, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I will say this. I will say that social media and like you're quickly like being polarized through the algorithm. And you could go on YouTube Shorts or Instagram Shorts or TikTok or whatever. And as you scroll, you see videos that you enjoy that like make sense why they'd be on your feed. And then the algorithm will purposely throw videos that they, you know, are totally different from the content you normally watch, but they want to see how long you engage with it. And naturally, sometimes we watch those videos even if we don't enjoy watching them or we're like, why is this on my feed? And over a period of time, it can sort of push you into different sort of like sectors of being online. And it can put you in places very quickly that you wouldn't normally want to be in, or content that you're watching that you wouldn't normally want to watch. And I think about how dangerous that can be with, you know, our critical thinking and like being able to identify, especially with AI, there's a lot of content that's just AI generated now. And it's becoming really hard to know if I'm actually watching a real person doing this thing or if it's just AI generated material. And we have to be super careful about like, you know, how information with these algorithms can like lead us into other radicalized, polarized views. Like it happens to everybody.
Oh, yeah. And you mentioned an AI. I mean, obviously, I mean, just think about that. How insane is it that we can do AI video in our lifetime? I just watched, you know, JFK and Abraham Lincoln do a wrestling promo. I mean, of course, it's ridiculous still, but it's getting better and better.
Yeah,
every day, and that's kind of the scary part to me is, and people are already getting fooled. Like they'll see something and be like, can you believe so-and-so was doing this? And then they're like, oh no, that was
It's
an
not
AI
real.
video. Yeah. So people are getting fooled by it right now. Which is scary. So my thing is really, it's a good time to put the phones down more.
It's a good time to
embrace
the phone
reality,
down
you know?
and to like be in your community, have relationships with people, because sometimes what's actually going on in real life may look very differently than what your phone is telling you. Look, I live in Portland, Oregon. And I went into an art store the other day and the person was like, oh, I've heard about Portland a lot in the news recently. I was like, yeah, but it's one block. It's like one block of Portland, but it's made to seem like the whole city is on fire. And that's not true at all. And Portland is Portlanding. I mean, there was a whole emergency naked bike ride the other day in response. There's been paws off. Puppy parades. There's people down near like the ice facility in frog costumes. Like Portland's Portlanding, and it's one block of Portland. It's not the whole city, but the news can make it seem like we are lawless, burning to the ground. And it's not at all what's real. Sure. It's not at all real. Like I live there. I live in community.
Oh, I love where this conversation is going because Appalachia as a whole is misunderstood.
It is.
And it started, the war on poverty back in the day with LBJ. As soon as a camera, was a thing, they started taking pictures of, poverty.
Yeah.
And they said, we do it all the time. And so because of that, you've probably heard, I mean, and you can talk about this if you want. You probably heard, we don't wear shoes. We marry our cousins.
Yeah.
All of these things that are just hurtful stereotypes that are not based in reality.
Yeah.
But it's just a rationalization. I feel like people are rationalizing their own problems and fears onto certain communities.
Yes, 100%.
Things they're unhappy with, they're looking for a reason to say, hey, look at these, idiot coal miners. Look at these dummies over here that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I think Portland's getting a taste of that over the past year or two for sure.
Totally. And like, it doesn't, I don't want to make any assumptions about how someone votes or who they support. Whether or not you support Bernie Sanders, I found it to be really interesting that there's a short YouTube video of him going to West Virginia to like super red voting places and just sitting down and having conversations with people. Even if they're on the opposite side of the aisle, he's just having conversations with people. And I so respect seeing that work in action. Sure. Like I love seeing that work in action. And I feel like we need to be doing that.
Yeah.
And I think like, I know when like the rise of QAnon was really at its height, a lot of that has started to fall off. But when the rise of QAnon was at its height, a lot of people who were involved in QAnon were really concerned about like sex trafficking and things like that. But I didn't see a lot of those people actually want to volunteer or go to a local like, shelter or say like, hey, like what's actually going on here? Like, how can we actually help?
Sure.
And
well, it's easier just to go make your little post.
And then you become an expert on it and then you have an opinion. But like the work begins in communities.
Oh, yeah. I have never known, and we don't, I'll tell you a good note on politics in West Virginia. And I don't do politics, but I just want to give you a statistic of why you can't really pay attention to numbers. But I love the fact that I've never known my neighbor's party affiliation. Yeah. I've never known it. I've rarely had a negative interaction in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Every day has typically been a good day.
Yep.
But one thing that upsets me too is people just say, oh, well, whatever side, just pointing at someone and saying, well, you voted for that Democrat, you voted for that Republican or whatever. One instance of that is they did a story in the 2016 election called, we went into deep Trump country. Like it was National Geographic. Well, they went in McDowell County which they said was the reddest county in America. But the stats actually, and they didn't talk about, is McDowell County had the lowest voter turnout in West Virginia.
Got it.
West Virginia had the lowest voter turnout. I think it was 48th.
Yeah.
Out of 50 states.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they just seek out these things
Right.
to that fits their narrative. And they all do that. And it's very frustrating. And like you said, I firmly believe a majority of people agree and would find it would be rare to find someone you can't relate with.
In some way.
Yeah, in some way.
Yeah.
In some way. Now, of course, you have bigots and idiots and people that have views that are really detrimental to society as a whole.
Yeah.
But I still think that's a very low percentage. I think the majority of people can sit down, have a conversation, have dinner and laugh.
Yeah.
And then move on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like we have to just point
I know.
and
We're so polarized right now. And it does, like, to bring this back to cults, like this is like, you know, cults
prime
are
real estate.
Yeah, well, it's like cults are very like us versus them mentality.
Mhm.
You're either on board with us or you're not. And like, I don't want to see us getting to that place in how we treat our neighbors,
Yeah.
you know, in communities. And the algorithms will make you think like we are to that point. But I see a lot of good in people, and I'm a relatively optimistic person, even with everything going on right now, which is pretty scary. But it starts with communities, checking in on each other. Yeah, it's huge.
Or we volunteered at a food bank, just going and loading up people's buggies
Mm-hmm.
and asking them, you know, hey, you've been playing chess still? How's that going? You know, just stuff like that. I find so much fulfillment in.
Yeah.
And it really, and you got to be positive. What are you going to do? You're just going to be like, well, which I mean, people do, but I'm the type of person like I don't feel like being a nihilist while I'm on this earth. I just don't. I believe in humanity and the good in people, and I always will believe that it'll outweigh the bad. It's just we get lost.
We get lost.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
get lost, and then we find tea and dough with Heaven's Gate. And
Yeah. Yeah.
they have the cure, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. During the show, I play a pretty powerful clip when I talk about Heaven's Gate, 'cause I talk about them for a minute.
Ooh, can we talk about them?
Sure.
Okay, but go ahead.
Yeah, I play a clip of some of their farewell messages that they filmed before they took their lives.
Mm.
And it really sits with people for a lot of reasons. You know, Doe is right behind the camera as he's filming these farewell messages. And also, people are saying phrases that Doe would repeatedly say. They use terms like, I'm doing this on my own free will. He talked about free will all the time. They would mimic language that he would use. And it showed like the level of control he had over them, how much they had bought in, even up until the end. It was so sad.
Yeah, that's what I feel. So I watched that special on HBO, and
Yeah, I did too.
And for those who don't know, and correct me here on the details, but just an overview of what Heaven's Gate is in the 70s.
Formed in the 1970s by, I must just call them Doe, Marshall Applewhite, known as Doe, and Bonnie Nettles, known as T. And they believed that the earth was about to be recycled, and that on the trail of the Hale-Bopp comet in 1997, they believed that they had to essentially take their own lives in order to become extraterrestrial beings and escape to the next plane. And it would offer them like true freedom, essentially, is what he pitched. And 39 members died who were in Heaven's Gate. It was horrible. And, you know, some people are saying, and I agree, like a lot of these people, like, they weren't doing this on their own free will. Like Doe was the course of control or controlling them up until the end. And some people have called it 38 people were murdered. And Doe, who did kill himself as well, was a suicide. Like that's how it's been phrased. And I think that's really powerful to say. Yeah, it was shocking at the time. Shocking.
Oh, yes. And it still is. And T, so where cognitive dissonance comes in is T ended up dying of cancer. And according to their belief, they kind of had to jump some hurdles there because she was supposed to be taken to the mothership as well. And there would be times, wasn't there times where they thought it was going to happen before Hellbop? Wasn't there a couple times where they imagined?
I don't remember, but this is ringing a bell. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen the documentary.
Gotcha. But
I'm sure it wasn't the only pitch where it was like, this might be happening. That's just common in groups regardless. Like,
yeah. And these were smart people. Like they had they had a marketing agency when that was a new thing where they were building websites and stuff in the early 90s, and that's how they would pay the bills. And you said something earlier, they look for generational wealth. Is that so they can pay power bills and, things that? Or
it's kind of like getting a big fish. It's like if you can find someone with generational wealth or who's wealthy or has like some sort of good job in society, if you fully reel them in and they're convinced that they're in the right place and they support the message, they're going to give money and they can become your like stream of how they're able to stay alive, And there's a lot of reasons why groups go for that tax exempt status too, because that can save money as well.
Which religions get, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Religious groups, entities. Yeah.
And I know Scientology fought for years to get that exemption, and they ended up getting it in the 90s.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is crazy because they essentially threatened the IRS with, I don't know, hundreds of lawsuits. And they said that they'll pull all the lawsuits if they gave tax exempt status. And I'm like, how is that in any realm legal? But unfortunately, that's how things go sometimes. But yeah, Heaven's Gate really stuck with me because I watched a lot of those clips, and these were, parents and, responsible folks that just decided, hey, this is what I can get behind. And people that left couldn't. I mean, one of the most devastating things is the people that were still here, there was actually more suicides after they left because they felt so guilty for still being here.
Which is horrible. And I think about old school Star Trek movies, like the original Star Trek. Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura, her brother was someone who died at Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, who took his life at Heaven's Gate. It hits home for people, like, and that survivor's guilt that you're talking about with people who it's horrible. Like, it's horrible.
Yeah. And two of them that were married in the group, which if they weren't considered married in the group, I don't think anyone had partners, but the daughter that was still here, it was just like, I just kept asking myself, like, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't they just be with me? Why do they have to go back to this group?
It's awful.
And
it's awful.
Yeah, it's devastating. But do you dive into personality traits? I'm just curious how much you know about like the dark triad of personality and like narcissism.
Narcissism is definitely something that is quite common, if not always the case when it comes to cult leaders. I'm not a psychologist. I haven't sat down and looked at cult leader profiles and been like, what like types of diagnostic labels could I give them? But what I can say is through anecdotal accounts with survivors who've left groups with leaders or through just watching documentaries, textbook narcissism, traumatizing narcissism, like they don't care who people are. Or what they need. They will use people to get to whatever end game they want to get to. And I get asked the question a lot, like, do they actually believe their own bullshit? Or are they just trying to manipulate people? And for me, I don't know if we'll ever know that question of intent. Like maybe some people really saw themselves as like prophets of God or something. Like I don't know. But what I can say is it's almost like intent doesn't matter. Like they were harming people. They knew that harm was being done and they didn't change.
Yeah.
They didn't change. And Some cult leaders, there have been like accountability for survivors, like Keith Raniere's and serving 120 years in jail for sex trafficking, racketeering, and other criminal offenses. But like,
he didn't plead guilty though, right? Or did he?
I don't remember that detail.
Okay.
I don't remember that detail. You may have to fact check that.
Because to me, like, true accountability to me is when someone admits, like, oh yeah, I was a piece of garbage.
I would be shocked if Keith Raniere did plead guilty.
Right.
I don't know for certain. It's bad I don't remember that offhand, but
no, it's okay.
It's so common to see narcissistic traits and qualities like in leaders.
And people, when you meet a narcissist, like, oh, I thought I knew what narcissism was.
Yeah.
But this is it. Like, there's some people that literally you can't tell them anything, and everything always turns to be about them. They can never take accountability for issues that they've gotten wrong.
And they may come off as really nice at first, really charming.
Oh,
like
so
you may like a lot of us have come across like a narcissistic person who it's almost like you would have never have known. And then you get into it a little bit and then it's like, oh man, like I feel totally blindsided. I thought I knew who this person was, and same thing happens in cults.
Yeah. So the psychology of cults, they give the green light, like, all right, Ashlen, it's going to be you. How did you structure this event?
Yeah.
What was the initial steps you did to build this out?
I was very lucky. I've done a lot of public speaking in my life and educating, but doing a tour, doing an onstage of live event is very different. Very, very different. And so I was assigned a director. His name is TJ Daw. He's absolutely fabulous. He's done a lot of like Vancouver Fringe festivals. He's done, one person shows, stand up. And we got together and over the course of a week, we wrote the show.
Oh, wow.
And it just kind of started with like him just being like, tell me all about your life and like, tell me all about the work that you do. And he was someone who didn't really know much about like cults. And so it was through like getting to know me, getting to know the field. I really just crash coursed him in like all of this stuff. And he's someone who's used to writing monologues, scripts. So he took what I was sharing with him and we collaborated and made it into a show. So the first hour of the show is me giving a memorized scripted performance essentially. And I'm playing video clips throughout. And then the second half of the show is audience Q&A. They get to scan a QR code and submit questions and I get to answer them on stage.
Oh, nice.
So that's awesome. And I'm honestly I get most excited for Q&A with this show because it's hard to know what's the audience thinking? Like, what do they want to ask? Maybe what's something that I didn't cover or what do they still have questions about? And so the live Q&A has been really cool.
That's great. How many shows have you done so far?
West Virginia, I believe, will be our 5th.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. So what do you hope audiences take away after they leave?
I hope they take away a deeper understanding of all the ways in which cult dynamics can look like and also places where it can exist. I think what's tough is right now we have documentaries on cults that are really good, but it's usually highlighting some of the worst of the worst of the worst cults that exist. And we need that representation. It's really important. We need to know about NXIVM and Heaven's Gate and Jonestown. But I think what happens then is there are cults that exist not on such an extreme end of the spectrum, and yet harm is still happening. But when people only see things like Jonestown to compare their situation to, they're like, well, maybe I don't need help, or maybe it's not so bad, or like, do I need resources? Is my experience cultic? It's not like I was forced to drink Kool-Aid, right? So I hope this show gives people a broader idea as to how cult dynamics can look in everyday life. That's my whole goal of the show.
Yeah. And the Kool-Aid reference is something I heard all the time when I was a kid, and I didn't realize until about my 20s. I was like, oh, that's Jonestown.
And it's crazy that it's just sort of thrown around because a large majority of people didn't drink the Kool-Aid voluntarily. They were forcibly injected with syringe.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
What was the initial deal with Jonestown? Like, I haven't watched anything on it, but they moved. Was it in South America? Or?
Yeah. So Jim Jones had a church out in California, and he moved his church to remote Guyana to build like a community there. And the reason why he left the States was for, a couple different reasons, but one of those was he was facing mounting criticism and concern from the public. He's a really charismatic guy. And also there was a lot of former member accounts coming out that he was pretty abusive. And like the church environments were really abusive as well. They had bad experiences. So to kind of go under the radar, he moved his church to Guyana. Once they were there, he took people's passports away. Like he made it extremely difficult. No one was to leave. And a U.S. congressman came down to inspect what was going on. And he spent a day or two talking with the people there at Jonestown, and people were slipping him notes that said, please get me out of here. Like, I need to get out of here. And as he was going to the airstrip to fly back, they were attacked. People who wanted to leave with him went with him, and they were attacked, and he was shot and killed, U.S. congressman.
But there's video.
Yeah, there's video of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's video of it online. And it was soon after that Jim Jones really was like, okay, end times is here. They're coming after us. Like, he created a heightened sense of fear, and it like, we're gonna end it, basically. Like, you're gonna come with me. Like, we're gonna end it. And some people, and the Kool-Aid was the drink powder that was mixed in with cyanide, which was used to kill people. And over 900 people died at Jonestown. 900.
I've watched the flyover.
Yeah, there's that clip of like bodies that you've seen.
It's devastating.
Yeah.
Didn't they have test runs too before that of like when they drink Kool-Aid and they acted like that there was cyanide in it to kind of train them?
I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like I remember hearing that.
Yeah.
But yeah. And when was that? Was that the 70s?
70s.
70s, yeah. Whew. And crazy part of that is the congressman's daughter was in the Rajneeshis. Which
Patricia.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Patricia Ryan.
Yeah, which that the two doesn't correlate with me.
Yeah,
I think
but it is interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. All right. So you got the show's going on tomorrow, but people are going to hear this 2 days after. How many more shows you got left? When does it wrap up?
Yeah, so we're on the road until like November 2nd. And we're all over the Northeast, and so we got some shows coming up. Let's see. I know you're going to so we'll be in
New Jersey, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Morristown. Come check us out. Chicago will be great. Indianapolis, Pontiac, Michigan, Buffalo, New York. Yeah.
All kinds.
All
wow.
kinds.
Okay. So, and then we
randomly have like this, we like finish tour on the 2nd, and then we have this random show in Livermore, California that we're flying out to on the 23rd of November. And then it's done.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, how fun.
Yeah.
And the response has been good so far?
It's been really good. I think like we're having a great time doing the show. I'm really proud of the show. It's taken so much work, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I think like it's interesting for the venues and the people who are promoting the show. I think they're wondering how to almost sell an expert show, because they're used to selling like stand-up, tribute band shows, concerts. And something like this comes along and it's very different. It's like a live event with an expert. And so it's like kind of a test run. It's like a niche in the market that isn't really there yet. So it's been really cool.
Oh, I love it. Well, so I'm a big Mr. Ballin fan, and I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a storyteller on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he just basically sits in front of a Zoom camera. I mean, it's not good quality, and he tells, various stories. And he did a live event in North Carolina that me and my daughter went to, and it was so fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like 3 hours long. We're just sitting here listening to this dude talk. And so I highly recommend people check it out. And I appreciate you being here. Let's talk about People Leave Cults, though. So you still do that, correct?
I do. Yeah. It will be there as a service for people. My books are closed because I'm touring my consulting books. But yeah, like I really wanted to create a website. And as you can see, it's very like playful. It's approachable. When we talk about cults are so freaking scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want that to be a barrier to people learning how to help people or how to get resources. And I've worked with multiple nonprofits in the field of cults. And so I really wanted to create approachability and accessibility. Like, where would someone even start to look for resources? Like, if someone was in a cult, what's available? How do they find a therapist who specialized in this stuff? And so that's, what I'm sort of creating as like a resource hub through People Leave Cults.
I love it. I love the logo. Who did this?
Yeah, my artist friend, her name is Becca Lemker. She is amazing. And she also designed our t-shirts that I've been like selling on tour.
Shout out Becca.
Yeah, Becca's amazing. And what I love about the t-shirt design is it has a really hopeful message behind the image, the graphic that she created. I love how it's like people leave cults, but then the middle person, you can see it says leaver on it. And I just think that's like so cool. I wanted something that people would actually like want to wear, that's like cool.
Sure.
But I also I wanted a hopeful message. Like I wanted survivors to be proud that that was their experience and they left this thing. And I hope to just have like less stigma surrounding these conversations ultimately.
I love it. Well, this is great. And you can get tickets online, correct?
Yes, it is on the psychologyofcults.com.
Psychologyofcults.com. Go to dates and tickets, get tickets, and they will hook you up.
Yep.
Well, cool. I had a question. And I forgot.
Where'd you get your Mothman shirt?
My Mothman shirt? This
my
was
catalytic
gifted to me
converter is incredible.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I have an artist friend named Gary Vaughn who's also a bail bondsman, and he's been on the show to tell me about his activities. But yeah, he brought this to me. I shot a Mothman movie. What all do you know about the Mothman?
A little bit. My dad's from West Virginia.
Oh, really?
I have family in West Virginia. He grew up in a very small town called Sisters.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I remember when I was young visiting my grandfather's cabin, and that was when I first heard about the Mothman. I was like, oh, kind of like freaky. Yeah, like a little bit loosely.
Oh, we have a whole festival. There was like 20,000 people that went to Point Pleasant.
Oh, that sounds so fun.
Yeah,
that sounds so fun.
We just bought each other's artwork. It was a good time.
I love that. Honestly, go to a festival, buy your friend's artwork. That's what we need to be doing more of.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Well,
I'm surprised you didn't give me the tinfoil hat for our conversation today.
Oh, I'm down. Listen, I mean, we can keep going.
Yeah.
We actually have a tinfoil hat show where we just pick a subject and my buddy comes in, and we absolutely are not experts on the subject, but we'll break it down for 4 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We're not experts, but we break it down. Love it.
Yeah. I mean,
it's fun to talk and shoot this and see what you can come up with.
Heck yeah. Well, I give a disclaimer. Like, everyone that listens to the show knows how severely unqualified I am. So, but I used to be a coal miner.
Yeah, cool.
For 9 years.
Was that around here?
Yeah, it was but I worked in Boone County at a place called Casey Mountain.
Yeah.
And I worked in it was like Wyoming Mingo County border. It's called Coal Mountain.
Is there cultic dynamics in coal mining?
Oh, yes.
I'm sure there could be, right?
Well,
maybe not. I don't know what the culture is like for coal miners.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah, I'm curious.
So some of the best people you will work with are coal miners, and some of the smartest people. Like, the hardest thing in the world to do is to drive a coal truck. Like, you'll hear people, talk about truck drivers, this and that, whatever, but it's probably one of the hardest things you can learn to do. And there's a lot of people there there's actually people that are intellectual. There's some of the best storytellers you'll ever talk to.
Yeah. I fully believe that. I fully believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but you'll have a very small percentage of jerks, but you have that with anything. Anything's like that. But the culture, it's very I don't know. Politically, it's kind of one-sided, but that's because, coal is unfortunately used as a political pawn.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but at the same time, you have various opinions across the spectrum, and you can talk to them. You can't. It's very hard to offend a coal miner too. So like they'll I was probably one of the very few that would talk openly about my religious beliefs.
Yeah.
And it would be completely contrary to the typical belief in God. And but the way I feel about it is like, I think it's great as long as it's bringing something positive to you and it doesn't make you discriminate and be an awful human.
That healthy version of mental health like we talked about.
Exactly.
Heck yeah.
So we would get on and have good debates on the radio.
Nice. That's cool.
But it was hard. So I'm glad glad I'm doing this.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Good money though.
Really?
Yeah. I dropped out of college. I made $90,000 in 1 year.
Wow.
When I was coal mining.
Yeah, that's quite the appeal.
Yeah. Just you take a 40-hour course and you work your way up to what's called so you start at a red hat, and that's basically your hard hat's red. And it means you're inexperienced. And then after a certain number of months, you can test for what is called your black hat. And that's experience. And they typically hire black hats above red hats.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very grateful for it.
I'm sure it probably taught you a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It keeps me grounded too, because like I consider myself like I can be a voice for the blue collar Appalachian class, in saying too that don't judge the book by its cover. Like when someone talks about a coal miner, they can think one particular thing, whatever that may be, from people outside of here, but it's way more diverse than that.
Yeah.
So I like to always remember that. And remember how hard it was to work those 60-hour weeks and, eat gas station food and always be mad when you're home.
Yeah.
Just overworked.
Yeah, just tired, exhausted and
exhausted. So but I'm grateful for it, but I'm grateful for this too.
I can imagine. Yeah.
But
yeah.
So after the tour, what's the goals?
The goals is the work continues. I mean, People Leave Cults continues. We'll be adding more and more resources to my site. And hopefully, these types of conversations that I'm having with people in communities all across the U.S., I'm hoping to do something with that information, in that I hope to almost like, I would love to present at like some professional conferences on like, here are the questions that people still have on cults. It's giving me a very like active temperature check as to like what people are thinking about cults. We have more resources and documentaries, and, internet has exploded with information surrounding cults, but people still have like a lot of questions, and there's still a lot of stigma. And like, so I'm excited to like sort of sit down and like look at that data and, see how we can potentially address this in how we operate as professionals in the field, like what needs to be covered more. And so I hope to sort of look at innovating like I do and adapt the work to still meet the needs of like what questions do people still have on this stuff.
Shoot, yeah. I love it. Well, thank you for your work and all that you do. And I don't know if you come back to West Virginia, we'll have to do this again.
I would love that. Love that. You never know. I never thought that I would be doing a tour like this. That's for sure.
Sure.
So you just never know. But I've appreciated your time. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Yeah. Do you have any podcasts? Are you a podcast fan? Do you have any you recommend?
Oh, I listen to a lot of gay content. I don't know how much of your audience is like queer folks, but I love Bald and the Beautiful by Trixie and Katya, two drag queens that are absolutely outrageous.
Heck yeah. We have tons of gay followers.
Yeah.
So
love
that's
Bald
awesome.
and the Beautiful. Other than that, to be honest, I've been really like, because I've been on the road and because I've been preparing for the road, if I'm not script writing, I'm listening to music. I listen to more music than I think I do podcasts right now. I love all kinds of genres of music, but I'm really big into weird experimental indie right now. Indie's such a big category in of itself, but
to keep my brain functioning, I'll just turn on this 85-minute Hans Zimmer instrumental.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I will also just like crank out. I'll be like, or like you'll find a YouTube video of like Harry Potter music to play in the background while you like read or write or do something. So yeah.
Well, good deal. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yep. Everyone out there, be sure to like this video if you haven't. Subscribe to Creepalachia on YouTube if you haven't. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, take a minute and leave a review. I really need some reviews on the podcast so we can help the show continue to be found. And we are on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and we are selling merch now at creepalachia.shop. And everyone else, always remember, above all else, long live Appalachia.